My name is Boris Anthony. I've been Joy Ito's webmaster, web designer, web consultant, designer, whatever, for, wow, almost 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 2003 I started talking with him. The first time I came to Tokyo was 2003, actually, for International Moblog Conference.
Oh.
That's where I met Joy. Through that, I've been through that connection, through that friendship with Joy. I've had the amazing opportunity to work with many different people, different projects, some of which you want to hear about today. I've also done some things. I mean, you asked me to mention something I might have done for DG or otherwise, the lab, the Joy Lab. I did the Creative Commons Japan website 2 years ago. I think I also pushed the Creative Commons Japan logo through the red circle.
Oh.
Yeah. And last year we did Technorati. What was that?
The Blog TV,
the Blog
yeah.
TV site. Is that still up?
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay. And I think Dominic still works on the CC site as
Yeah,
well. So it's always good to, when websites are things that change constantly, and when something you've built is still in use a couple of years later, it's kind of neat because it shows that you've made a solid structure that other people can work with and build on. So pretty proud of that, actually. Joy started up his blog at one point. I don't know exactly how, but Justin Hall from California, who I think was living here at the time, introduced Joy to Movable Type, which is owned now by Six Apart, of course. And Justin was Joy's webmaster for the first year or two or something like that. Justin, of course, being Justin, got busy with all kinds of other stuff. And around that time, so I think it was the end of 2002, I had found Joy's blog and started commenting, and through a long series of events, I ended up meeting Joy here in June, July 2003. And at that point we'd been chatting. I'd been helping out with stuff on his blog as well and being part of the #JoyIto IRC channel. And I mean, it just sort of happened. So Joy just said, do you want to be my webmaster? And I said, of course. Aren't I already? No, but that was, yeah. So that's how I started there. And like I said, Joy's an awesome guy, and he likes hooking up people and projects, especially if you know what you're doing and you're good at it and you're a likable person. Like I think I am. I try to be. Anyways, ooh, now I'm embarrassed. Anyways, so that's how I got to Joy's blog and to be sitting here at the Joy Lab. Yes.
So maybe other projects?
So the other stuff, well, so my two main projects right now in terms of hands-on involvement and work are Doppler.com and the globalvoicesonline.org project. I'll start with Global Voices because, I mean, both are very interesting for very different reasons. And I'm really proud and happy to be working on both of them. But GV really is just, it's stunning in its huge, in its scope and scale, and also maybe how it, what's the word I'm looking for, fits into just a lot of things that Joy is interested in and Joy does. And so yeah, I'll start with Global Voices. So globalvoicesonline.org was started I think 3.5 years ago at the Berkman Center for Internet and Society. And the original idea was to do editorialized aggregation of news weblogs from around the world. And I say news hesitantly, or citizen journalism or citizen digital media from around the world, specifically ignoring the West, so Europe and North America, because at the time those blogospheres were already very developed and covered in the mainstream media was starting to pick them up already, but nobody was listening to what's going on in the rest of the world. So Global Voices stepped up and said, we're going to listen to the rest of the world. And hence our tagline, Global Voices Online, the world is talking, are you listening? So I I got called up by Rebecca McKinnon, one of the founders, who I'd worked with before, who I'd met through Joy. And the other founder, Ethan Zuckerman, who I'd also met through Joy a little while earlier. And they asked me to help redesign and build this thing, and make it grow and be bigger. So it started off with basically just a WordPress blog, which it still is fundamentally. Lots of plugins, lots of work done on that. And we have an incredible team of, I think, about a dozen or 15 editors, or maybe more, globally, who monitor their blogospheres, mostly regional, but also some thematic, and also now language groups. So like Francophonia for French speakers, the Spanish blogosphere, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And those people marshal an army, a veritable army of amazing volunteer bloggers. Usually people that they would that the editors were watching, they would establish relationships with them and say, well, listen, you're a really good source for us, and we'd love it if you became one of our authors. And these people work on a volunteer basis. And they will come in, and what they do is they write stories for us based on events in their regions, or things of interest in their regions, or in their particular topic, or whatever it is. And this is fantastic, because what it allows is for a Western reader, or anybody from a place other than where this article is about, to not just get a bunch of facts that out of context don't mean much to you, but somebody from there who understands the story will tell you about it, will build a story around it so that you understand what, the information, why is this important. It makes you really feel like you're there, like you're hearing something that's not been filtered through mass media. It's not been filtered through corporate agendas or whatever. And now I sound like indie media, but whatever. I mean, we do. We want to get it from the source. All our content is Creative Commons licensed. We've got, I think we're up to maybe 40 or 50 posts a week. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the stats in a while, but we have an enormous amount of output. The blog is, the site is split into two right now. The main site is split into two: posts and links. Which is basically, links are just quick things like, this is going on in this place, or so-and-so is talking about this in this place, go see. And then posts are actual, like I was explaining, contextualized stories, like editorial. Enormous throughput. All these people work, most of this work is done by volunteers. The organization is supported by fundraising, by funders and so on, and sponsors. So there's, everybody, the editors and the technical and design crew, like myself and my assistant Jeremy Clark, get paid a certain amount to do the actual work. But a lot of the content is just done by people who want to get their stories out, who want to get this information out about stuff that's going on, where they live, what matters to them, etc. I think partly why aside from the love of it, or this desire to communicate, another reason. And it's actually part of it is everything that gets written is linked back. I mean, everybody gets credit where credit is due. I mean, if we talk about somebody talking about something, we link through. We send them traffic. We send them attention. It's happened numerous times where, some normal everyday person, just like we are as well, who happens to have a blog and happens to something happens in their city. And they'll start writing their own personal commentary about it, and next thing they know, they get a phone call from the BBC or from CNN saying, "We really like this piece. Could we interview you on international television?" I mean, this happens on a totally regular basis. Here in Japan, we have an awesome team of Chris Salzberg and Hanako, but they pull things out of Japanese media and translate them into English, and they scour the Japanese blogosphere and stuff, and they uncover amazing stuff. And yeah, like Chris now, Chris is I think a physics PhD student, and he has pieces published in Japan Times, and he gets referenced and called up and stuff like that. So it's really amazing. We've had computer support technicians who did online live interviews on Al Jazeera in Bahrain and stuff like this. It's just it's absolutely incredible. And that was the core of Global Voices for a long time, and it still is. I mean, that's our main thing. But our amazing founders and managing editors, and also some of our long-standing members, are just an incredible group of people. And they said, "Well, this is not good enough. We want to do more." So now we've branched out. There's two branches called, one is outreach and one is advocacy. And the advocacy work is really about documenting human rights and freedom of speech violations, mostly internet censorship and this kind of stuff. So Sammy, who lives in The Hague, he runs that operation. Writes articles, also is like getting called left, right, and center for conferences and talks and mainstream media appearances. Outreach, run by David Sasaki, who lives in Oakland, California at this point. He moves around a lot. David's always been one of our stars and has always worn many hats within the organization, and now he's in charge of outreach. Outreach is great. Like, they've got their own fundraising set up. They subsidize, they give out basically micro grants and help blogging initiatives all around the world. Like, a village in, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, wants to set up a workshop, teach its people how to use digital media, how to blog, how to podcast, how to videocast, and they'll do that, and they'll get like a certain amount of money to do that, and they'll start it up, or how to start a local aggregator and things like this, and a bunch of other stuff. I hate to admit I haven't been following David as closely as I should, but I mean, they're just doing amazing stuff, really pushing it out and doing it for the love and the desire and the belief that we need people to communicate and raise awareness. Yeah, and that's a major reason why I'm also involved in this project and many others, and everything I do is basically I just try to raise everybody's awareness. I don't necessarily believe in an absolute truth at this point in my life, but I do think that the more information people have, the better. Whether it's good or bad information, of course it's better if it's good information, but if everybody just starts talking, there's things move around, culture gets created, and the better it is. So yeah, and Global Voices sort of fits that perfectly. And there's one more thing, and this is a whole other growing branch of Global Voices is called the Lingua Project, which is translations. For legal and editorial reasons, we don't allow original content on the Lingua projects, and I'll explain what that is in a moment. Because we have to be held accountable for what gets published, still to a certain extent, of course. So the Language Project is direct translation of Global Voices content. So anything that appears on the Global Voices main site can be translated by any one of a number of translation groups that we have set up sites for. And they can pick and choose which articles they want to translate, and they will translate them on their sites. I think we're up to 12 languages now, 2 different Chinese. The Japanese site is doing great. Malagasy, which is like the language in Madagascar, is one of our top movers. They translate like crazy. Hindi, I forget all the languages. Anyways, it's just that in itself is hugely inspiring. And these people are all volunteers as well. Volunteer translators, which is just unheard of. It's crazy.
How do you motivate these people?
Well, actually, Chris Salzberg, who I mentioned before, here in Tokyo, he actually he did a survey asking them a bunch of questions, like, what's interesting, what's important to you, why are you doing this? I've scanned it really quickly. I didn't get a chance to really read through it, but a big part of it is, some of them hope, and this is true, this does happen, hope to have sort of essentially what amounts to referral traffic, or referral work. They use it as a place to practice their translation craft, an opportunity to have exposure for their work, the quality of their work. So, there's hopes that somebody will say, hey, I've seen that you translate on Global Voices. I think you're really good. I'll give you work. So there's that. Most of them are bloggers as well, so they get the link love as well. This post was translated by so and so. Boom, goes straight to their site. So we drive traffic and awareness to them as well. I think a big motivating factor as well for all these people, aside from the attention that we get ourselves and we pass on to them, is again this desire to just share. Like, we want to get information out, and our focus is newsworthy content. What you'd normally try to expect from a mainstream media news source. Like, we're not covering fashion trends or race cars or sports. Like, we actually explicitly don't do sports, stuff like that, or lifestyle type of things. It's news, like what's happening. There's a coup d'etat in Thailand, and we've got the kids on the street blogging about it, we're the first ones to see that stuff almost immediately. Assassination on political figures, it's it comes right in. I mean, I've been in situations where it's 11 o'clock at night here. I'm about to go to sleep, or I'm chatting with somebody, and I gotta stop. I gotta set up an aggregator for Reuters because somebody just got assassinated, or somebody's breaking a border or something. And it's just like that, and it's amazing. While it's certainly part of our goals and hopes that every day people will come to us as their source, we're also quite interested and quite successful in getting the attention from mainstream media. So from people like Reuters, who's one of our funders actually, but also The Guardian, the BBC, I think New York Times, Washington Post. I mean, these have all become friends of ours, and we have various types of agreements, and we do special projects with them. So, I mean, they're aware of us, and they reuse our content, and because everything's Creative Commons licensed, which is great because they just amplify what we're amplifying all the more. Also learning from us how to use the technologies and how to do stuff at that level, at this grassroots level, if you want to say that, using Creative Commons licenses, using blogs, using aggregators, and all this kind of stuff. So I think we're doing really well. I mean, we've won awards for like innovation in journalism and stuff. So it's an awesome project, and it's working well. There's no ads at this point. I mean, there's we at the bottom we thank our funders. Okay. And we're going to do a bit more in that space. Like we're going to get more sponsorship. Like we'll actually get a certain organization to sponsor the editorial for a region, for example, or sponsor the translation of a specific language or attention to a specific topic. And for that, the design will have to accommodate certain what amount to banner ads. Thank you, Al Jazeera, for sponsoring the Middle East coverage, for example. But I don't think we're ever going to have like commercial banner ads. There's a strong desire in our community to not do that. Well, that's another thing we could talk about as well, is that while we do have a certain hierarchy, a structure of authority, it's not really authority. I mean, we have the founders, we have the managing editor, there's an executive director coming in, managing editors, authors. I mean, there is a structure there, but it's all very loose. Very, very little gets done without basically a town hall meeting. Like everybody has a say. It's very, very democratic in some ways. This causes problems sometimes as well, but that's the way it goes.
So is the communication method mailing lists, or like do you have conference calls?
We don't. So mostly mailing lists. So we have, like I said, we have this soft hierarchy, and we have mailing lists for each one. And some people are in all of them. Us at the very top are subscribed to like 5 or 6 rather high volume mailing lists. That's our main day-to-day stuff. We use Google Groups for that stuff. We have, I think, bi-weekly editorial IRC meetings, and I think we're about to set up our own internal Twitter clone as well, which I'm hoping will help glue the community a bit more together. Yeah, I mean, we have to also. It's funny because a lot of our volunteers, even from the beginning, are not that technology savvy. I mean, they're normal, they're everyday people. They're not web designers and stuff. So, I mean, some of them came to this not even knowing what an aggregator was, which is amazing. So when you tell them, get into this IRC channel, oh my God,
what is IRC?
What is IRC? How do I do this? So that's been a bit of a hurdle, but it still works. So mostly mailing lists, and we have an internal. It's basically an intranet site. I haven't said that word in years. We have an intranet site, a Drupal site, which basically is an internal blog where we just communicate to each other, post things, and discuss in the comments and so on. So yeah, and it works fairly well. It needs to work better, I gotta say. We need calendaring and stuff like this and scheduling. But so far so good, and we're moving forward, so it's all good. We have yearly summits. This is the coolest part.
Wow.
This is one of the coolest parts, being somebody who works on Global Voices. Once a year, If you're part of the editorial and organization, and a very good contributor, you might get flown out to some exotic location for our yearly summit, which is usually 2 or 3 days. Last year it was in Delhi. 2 years ago it was in London when Reuters sponsored us. This year it looks like I think it's in Budapest in June. So I mean, this is great, and it's you've been to Creative Commons summits, right?
Yeah, iCommons Summit.
iCommons Summit, where you meet all these people.
Yeah.
And you realize just like, wow, it's the energy and the love, the love they have for the project and the work they do. It's really great. It's amazing.
So what do you do in the summit?
Oh, we get drunk and
So do you have like speeches or workshops or?
The format's been changing. I mean, the first year was just panels and talking about what we're doing, what the goal is, etc. Last year, we had a first day of open panels, so anybody could come in and we could talk and present. There were presentations. It's sort of like any conference, really. There were panels and workshops. I think this year as well. Like the schedule has just been flying around this week, so I'm not really sure. We also have a closed day where only people from Global Voices, and this is where we discuss like, okay, what are we doing? Where are we at? What do we want to do in the future? What do we need to make better? What do we cut out? So public and private, open door, closed door panels and workshops and talks. Yeah, and that's amazing. Especially like going to dinner afterwards and you're like, oh, I finally get to meet you. That's amazing. You've done incredible. You do incredible work. That's great. Thanks a lot. So, anyways.
How many people come?
Oh, it's gonna be huge this year. I don't know. Maybe. Oh, good question. Last year, I think we were maybe 40 or 50 or 100. I can't remember. But it's quite big. Yeah. Doppler, the other project I'm working on. So Doppler is a social network service, website, tool for travelers, people who travel a lot. The quick way of explaining it, or a quick way we try to get the idea into people's head is it's really useful for people who travel more than 5 times a year and who know at least 5 people or more who also travel that long, and you all hook up on this site. Essentially, what we do is you tell the site when you're going to be where in the world, and also we use different language than other social network sites, but we allow you to become fellow travelers with other people. So people people who are friends of yours, trusted associates, colleagues, friends, so on. And what this means is we can show you, like, you share your trips, meaning you will be notified when this person is going to be in the same city as you at the same time. And that's called a coincidence, right? Coincidence. A shared moment, essentially. So I work on the web interface of the site. Doppler was created by Marco Artisari, who is an old friend of Joy's. He recruited 2 stars from the London, I'm going to say, geek scene. Star programmer Matt Biddulph, who's done all kinds of amazing stuff over the years, for mostly BBC and related things, like the BBC Archive. I think he spearheaded that project. And also star interaction designer Matt Jones, who actually, Matt Jones had been in Tokyo a couple years ago at the Kizuna meeting. No, not Kizuna. Is it Kizuna? It was Kizuna, I think. Anyways. Yes, it was Kizuna, which was like a Nokia, Sony Ericsson, and Joy's friends and of web professionals and social anthropologists got together and talked about this kind of stuff. Anyways, so Marco had the idea to have this network where you could see, if you travel a lot, you could see where your friends who also travel a lot are going to be. And we do coincidences, space and time, people in space and time. What aspect of this should I talk about? Well, I came across it, of course, being in this business. When you cross a bunch of stars on a neat project, you hear about it because you're in the same industry, and I immediately signed up and got an account. By fluke, I went to a conference in Paris this summer, and Matt Biddulph, who's the developer, the guy now our CTO, was one of the organizers of this conference, and his girlfriend was there as well, and it turns out she's from Montreal originally. Mm-hmm. So we sort of became friends and chatted, and it also turned out that they were going to spend a part of the summer in Montreal. So right away I offered Matt Biddulph a desk in my office because I have a spare desk in my office. Mm-hmm. So Matt showed up, and he showed up every second day or so in my office, and by the second week, I think, I was also, at that point, I was a regular user of Doppler, and many people I knew were already on it, so I could see the value, I could see the fun of it and the interest. And by the second week, basically, and knowing both Matts as well, and I sort of realized, well, there's a gap here. You've got the guy who builds it, the implementer, and you've got the guy who sort of sketches the interface and says, this is how it should be. Mm-hmm. Well, there needs to be somebody in the middle who, hooks it up. So I basically just said to Matt, I think you need my help. I definitely think you need my help, and so I'm going to help you. So, help me help you. Let's do this. And I just started. They gave me a sandbox to work in, and it started there. What was it, June or July? Immediately started working on it. And now we've grown. We've got Tom Insom, who's joined us. We don't have official titles, but I guess junior programmer or whatever. And he does incredible stuff as well. Mm-hmm. Really bright guy. We've got a full executive team as well. So a CEO, COO. First round of funding. I think we're working on our second round now. So it's really serious, and we're talking to advertisers and partners and stuff like that. Lots of new features, lots of cool stuff. I think we just announced an alpha round, so it's a restricted testing round for some of our top users, calendar importing. Mm. So you can publish your calendar from iCal directly into Doppler, or you can if you're publishing through Google Calendars or something, you take the URL and stick it in Doppler, and we'll go grab your trips from there, and back and forth. I completely forgot to mention another core member or founding member is Dan Gilmore, who is Joy's old friend as well. Mm-hmm. And Dan is also on the board of advisors for Global Voices, and so is Joy, by the way. Mm-hmm. So you can see sort of there's overlap in my networks. I'm so lucky. I only work with friends and friends of friends. It's fantastic. There's a couple of things that I'm kind of interested and excited about. Because of time limitations, I can't necessarily get really deep into them in terms of investing my time and getting into it. But they're things that are going on that are interesting to me. Mm-hmm. That's one side of it. There's also just projects that I've been exposed to and implicated in that I'd like to spend more time on in the future, if and when I can. Or also just, I'm actually thinking of three specific things, and my involvement with all three is slightly different. So I'll just start with one of them. Okay. I didn't do so well with this because I'm web, I'm totally cyber, but there's something going on that I think is really interesting and really important. Mm-hmm. And to give it sort of a nutshell name, it's hardware hacking. Something's happened over the last 2 years or so, 2-3 years, where sort of the open source mentality of software has been taken up by hardware people as well. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how this developed because it seems to have come out of and there's it sort of seems to have happened at the same time in different places in different ways. Mm-hmm. The one that I'm aware of and that I've played with is something called the Arduino board from Tinkerit, and that's out of Italy, out of an interaction design school called Ivrea, which closed down a few years ago. But this thing called Arduino, which is this really scary looking piece of hardware technology, a little microcontroller computer board, right? So it's like chips. This is scary stuff to most people, and it still scares me to a certain extent, and I've done a workshop. But this was developed as a rapid prototyping tool for interaction designers. And usually when you think of interaction designer, you think of a CD-ROM or a DVD title or whatever. But no, these are people who are doing stuff like ambient displays or ambient information displays. wearable computing, soft computing, ambient computing, ubiquitous computing everywhere, stuff like that. It's like, in a lot of ways, it's a whole new world. I mean, I know people who've been working in this for the last 5, 10 years, but we're getting to a point now where something like this was needed. This allows you to rapidly prototype an idea of, if you wanted to, for example, sense the temperature in the room, do something with that information, and then display it somehow, or make the person aware of it. For example, you could easily prototype that interaction, that thing with an Arduino board, or that processing of information. You can also create interactive things. So for example, actually at the Mori Art Museum here in Tokyo right now, and also at the Tokyo Contemporary Art Museum, I got the names wrong, but it's something like that. They both have this same little thing that was developed for them. It's a white plastic seat, cushion seat, sort of translucent plastic white. And when you sit on it, depending on your weight, it glows a different color. And this, is one of the it's almost as if it was a star exhibit of the museums, but it's just this thing that they have in the hallway that you can sit down on. But everybody's like loving it. The kids are all over it. People are sitting up and down on it. Something
lots of videos of that.
and lots of videos of it, sure. And it's a really clever thing that the museums did, because it's a draw, right? But the thing is, building that is really simple with something like this, because I could make one of these right now if I'd have to research it again and figure out how to use this thing. But basically what you do is you build a box, you put a sensor of some sort inside the box, you hook it up to this, and you write and then on the other end of it you hook a couple of LED lights, and you say, okay, when the sensor senses this certain weight, glow this color, and when it senses this weight, glow this color, etc., etc. It gets more complicated than that, but somebody who knows what they're doing can build this special seat in probably half an hour, if not more, if not less, or just at least sketch out the idea for a mass market. And here's where the open source thing and where this becomes more of a revolutionary type of thing is, that's cool for making one-off things like seats for a museum lobby, but I also know people who are using Arduinos and related technologies or similar technologies to prototype ideas for things that they want to then mass produce. And so you start off prototyping, you figure out your software, you figure out the way the interaction is supposed to happen. Because again, we're talking about a whole new world, like people interacting with information in their environment. So you have to figure out, before you go to China and crank out 50,000 units or 100, a million units, you want to make sure it's perfect. So you prototype the idea and you iterate and iterate and iterate until it's perfect. And then, you'll have a breadboard like this with a couple of wires and whatever, your sensors and your inputs and outputs, and your software, which you write on the computer, which is sort of based on a Java program, on a Java language, like processing, actually co-developed with processing, which is a data visual. It's a art what's it called? Software art platform. But anyways, once you've done that, then you can take this to a hardware maker, and they will make a custom board. And it's not hard. Because you don't need to be a hardware engineer to be able to do this. Most of the people who go to the workshops that tinker it, the company that created the people who created the Arduino, so tinker.it, you want to see that? They run workshops like every 2 weeks or so, starting to be more and more international, setting up groups here and there, and you can go and learn. If you have a minimum of programming experience or design experience, it's really something interesting. You go in and say, okay, well, I've got this ready platform to prototype something. I've got an idea. I want to make this thing do this. You just learn some basics of hardware programming, and there you go. And it's usually like a question of a weekend workshop. And it's growing. Arduino is not the only one. There's a couple of others. This is going to be a big deal, I think. I really think so. It's exciting to me, and I'm watching it. I'm tracking it. Personally, I don't know if I can do anything because I'm so busy with web stuff. But I try to talk about this to as many people as I can. We're already seeing growth out of just the Arduino platform. There's a firm in San Francisco called ThingM, and what's his name? I think it's Mike Kuniavsky and some friends of his who are like old school, amazing like interaction designers and hardware people and whatever. They started a company called Thing M, and they make these kinds of ambient technology stuff, for lack of a better word, and are really into ubiquitous computing and environmental, wearable computers and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, so Thing M, the first product they've put out on the market, which you can buy, is called Blink M, and the reason this is sort of like open source software started with people sharing what's called libraries, like little chunks of code that do a specific thing, and you could use that chunk of code with another chunk of code for free under GPL or whatever, and you could build a bigger application. And we're starting to see this now with hardware. So, you can sort of think of Arduino as being your core operating system or your core system. And now we're seeing things like Thing M has put out Blink M, which very specifically is a library, a physical library for LED manipulation, LED light manipulation. It has all kinds of built-in routines that you have access to from your Arduino to make it, if you want to make it fit, if you want to make an array of LEDs fade from darkness to brightness across 3 different colors, you have an easy way of doing that instead of having to program the whole thing from scratch yourself. These are hardware libraries, essentially. We're starting to see this now. It's starting to happen. The next one is, maybe they're going to put out something with a little speaker and has pre-programmed sounds, or a full synthesizer built in that you can just, has an API and you just plug in a couple of things and you're off. Again, instead of having to build it from scratch. This Arduino board 5 years ago was something like a hardware engineer had to build from scratch every time he started a project. Now, for $20 or something, he's got that beginning thing, and he can order a Blink M, and he has his whole LED subsystem in place, and boom, 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 and these things are just going to grow. It's really, really fantastic. So I don't know where it's going to go, but I think it's really important and really interesting, especially considering all the ubiquitous computing and stuff that we're seeing now, RFIDs and all this stuff. Like, it all comes together somehow with also open hardware hacking stuff. So this is interesting and exciting to me. What else? I can talk about Pechakucha, which, do the sales pitch for Pechakucha. Pechakucha was started here in Tokyo in 2003 by Klein Ditham Architecture. The idea is essentially, it's a show and tell for creative people. Anybody who's doing anything interesting, cutting edge or not. It can also be stories or whatever, but it's a show and tell for projects, for cool stuff that's being done. There's a specific format. It's 20 slides, 20 seconds each slide. So every presenter is up for a maximum of 6 minutes, 40 seconds. And these Pechakucha evenings are held usually once a month, once every 2 or 3 months, depending on the city. And it's great. It's a great environment where you go see and you see what other people in your town are doing, or city. And I think as soon as they started doing them in Tokyo, people around the world started saying, hey, we should do something like this as well. So now we've got, Pechakucha globally. Almost, I think, over 100 cities in the world now have Pechakucha events. I do the Pechakucha event in Montreal with some associates who helped me assemble a small team. And that's interesting and exciting to me. On 2 levels. On a local level for Montreal, because Montreal has a specific culture and a specific scene of designers and architects and whatever, and I wanted to play some part in spreading, again, awareness about what's going on in various fields and what people are doing. I tend to focus on technology stuff and design, technology, and arts, creative stuff, but also do architecture and urbanism and all this kind of stuff. But also, and I had lunch with Klein Ditham Architecture today, talking about PK Global and what the general thing is, and the movement behind it and so on, and some interesting things coming out of there. I don't know how much I can actually talk about, but they're talking about the Pechakucha Foundation, which could potentially fund, for example, projects like designer projects, whether it's a product or some kind of useful environmental thing that would help certain things or whatever. Somebody who has a really great idea could get potentially some money from a Pechakucha Foundation, for example. So that's pretty neat. And again, that's mostly technology, design, architecture, urbanism, which is a quite broad spectrum of things. I mean, right there. Yeah, architecture is design and technology and et cetera, et cetera. So that's pretty. I'm really glad to have kicked my own butt and started that up in Montreal and become part of the Pechakucha family, I guess. So it's pretty neat. We've done 3 so far in Montreal. We've got a 4th one just after I get back home, and already have the 5th one lined up as well in partnership with people. So that's cool. Another thing that's taking up my time, but I'm happy to do it. It's pretty neat. I'm also I'm really hoping. I don't know how much. I mean, imagine how much time I have at this point, but hoping to help the guys from Tokyo Art Beat spread their wings and spread themselves around the world a bit. TokyoArtbeat.com is a website based here in Tokyo. It's been running for I think 2 or 3 years now. It's an incredible resource for Tokyo and also Kansai region now. Everything and anything that has to do with art or design, exhibits or events, so like museum, gallery showings, etc., is listed on Tokyo Art Beat. It has some social network and user-generated content. I can't believe I said that. Features where people you can create an account on it and you can create yourself a calendar and say I want to see this and I want to see this and I want to see this. People review things they've seen, they recommend it or not. There's an editorial as well. There's the tab blog, so there's actual editorial content of people with a bit more knowledge and understanding and background in the arts or design who will write posts and articles about specific events and shows. So there's recommendations and stuff. So the guys have this great system, this back-end content management system. They're running Tokyo Art Beat, Kansai Art Beat. One of the founders has just moved to New York City, so New York Art Beat is being sparked up as we speak. I really want to help the guys, go further. We want to do Paris Art Beat, London Art Beat, San Francisco Art Beat. Who knows? Everywhere. Let's go. To do that, there's a lot of work. A lot of work has to be done on the platform, considerations in design, organizationally. How do we structure this, et cetera, et cetera. So I've been talking to them, and at some point, I hope I can help them. If not directly, then at least maybe hook them up with somebody who can help them.
Great.
In terms of money and resources, essentially, is what they need. I mean, they have a very good product, if I can put it that way. They have a very good vision and the desire to do it, and they love that scene, and they want to just help it grow around the world. So that's what I'm sort of interested in and excited about these days.
So, listening to you talk, a lot of things that you're involved in is something that goes global, like Tokyo Art Beat goes New York, and then
That's
Global Voices goes global, and then Pechakucha goes global,
That's
and
really
also Doppler is
global, and it's all about, and a lot of it is about places,
travels, and your lifestyle is like you're everywhere, right?
It's true. That's
you're
really interesting.
in Tokyo for a month now, and then you were in London, and then your house is Montreal, but you travel around.
I move around. That just put chills down my spine because I hadn't actually thought of it that way. I've been literally living on the web for 10 years. I want to say place doesn't mean much to me, but it does. Place is hugely important. But I'm able to sort of when you spend that much time on the web, and I don't want to say it this way because I can get a bit blah 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 and hot airy about it, or philosophical about it. But basically, when you spend this much time in cyberspace, ducking in and out of cyberspace and popping up in different places in cyberspace, you start. If that's something you want to do in the real world, you can do that. And this is what I've done. About 4 years ago, just before I met Joy, actually, just before I started doing work with Joy, I was in a corporate job in a cubicle. And I remember one day I wrote down a list and I said, these are the cities I want to visit when I can. And I really would like to spend some time in this city and go to this place, da 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 da. And I mean, I realize also this is not something you can just do and wake up the next day and say, I'm going to go. I'm going to change my lifestyle and just work from wherever. It took about 3 years for me to gear up and be able to live the way I live now. And that's because, I mean, my work is fully virtual. My clients are global, and they think globally. The things we do is not about, you know, local interventions or local projects. Not out of any like egotistical thing or out of some thought that, you know, if you're going to go big or anything like that. It's just, I think we tend to think that way. The people that I work with, we just think there is no such thing as. It's not that there's no such thing, but like when you put information on the web, it's there for everybody, and sometimes that requires a bit more work to make it really available to everybody. But you know, we think in a global way, and it's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, I have friends back in Montreal who are completely local, who think completely locally, who set up, you know, local user groups and things like this, and I think that's fantastic and that's great. But I just don't think that way. I think like I'm going to put something online. I'm going to do something online. I want it to hit as many people as possible. And there's pros and cons to both approaches, obviously, and it takes people on both sides. But yeah, citizen of the world, I guess. I'd love to be able to believe that. Yeah. I remember pre 9/11. I remember thinking like, somebody's going to have to come up with like a UN passport one day or something for people like myself who just want to live anywhere. Like I'm not a citizen of any one country. I'm a human being with a certain legal affiliation. That's not going to happen anytime soon now. But people, you know, and you know, Doppler targets are the kinds of people who probably have dreamt of that as well. People like Joy and Marco or whatever. It's like, you know, why do I, you know, passports and all this stuff, whatever. Anyways, and it's funny, another thing is that a lot of the projects that I'm involved with, we end up talking about maps at some point. Maps are hugely important. And when the Google Maps came out, it was like, wow, okay, bam, there's so much we can do now. It's amazing how the more virtual you go, the more time you spend in the web and traveling, the more important maps become just for making sense of it all. You know, place becomes another context in your life where it's not. I mean, when you stay in one place becomes something you take for granted. You know, like in your memory, when you think about where did I have this conversation with this person, it's very restricted. It becomes very local. Like, oh yeah, it was at that cafe down the street. But then when you start moving around a lot, it's like, who did I meet? I met so and so, but where was it? When was it? And so time and space take on a completely different meaning. And okay, now I'm just sort of like yapping away, but I mean that's part of the reason why I love Doppler. Like when it came across, it's like, wow. I mean, it's very philosophical, time and space, and my place in it, and other people's place in it, and what can we do, and how can this help us do what we do, and I hope that, you know, what I do somehow contributes to raising everybody's awareness in some way, you know. Got to get back to work on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.